So I actually started live streaming a little bit ago and my camera overheated and died. So this is the fly that I actually tied in the last live stream. But we're going to tie this one again. This is a tiny little streamer that I like to use during the winter months. I use this a lot on just kind of my local rivers out here in Utah. But this is a very effective fly pattern. So we're going to start this fly by using these lime hotspot beads right here. These are one of the jig beads. I don't know if it's called jig bead. It's a slotted bead, but I use them for tying this jig streamer. And then I'm going to use a size number 8 ML511 Moonlit Togata hooks. These hooks are awesome. They're very sharp, and I do have a discount link if you guys want to check these out. But these hooks are razor sharp. I really do enjoy them. Oh, almost lost the bead. Okay. Mount that on there. We'll get tying. So I'm using some GSP thread right now. I like using GSP thread for streamers just because it's really strong. You don't have to worry about it breaking off, especially when the hook's really sharp. A lot of times it'll snap that thin thread, and I just feel like it's easier to catch that thread on these hooks. Snip off that tag. Okay, so we're going to start by using some of this squirrel tail, but we're not going to actually tie this in. We're actually going to hook it onto the hook right here through the leather. So we size up the length we want. I usually do just a little longer than the length of the body. So do about right here should be good. Now we're just going to hook that on. Just like that. Okay, and then we're going to undo the clamp, pull the fly off just for a sec while we work that leather all the way on. Then we'll get that out of the way and clamp it back. Okay. Then we can just kind of store that out of the way. We don't need that at the moment. Make sure no fibers are going to get in the way. Then we're going to do a dubbing loop. So we'll just loop up our thread. Or you can split the thread. Either way works. Work that to the back of the hook. And then I use a whip finish tool, but you can also use one of the dubbing loop tools. But you get the same result out of this whip finish tool. I actually have a video on my channel that shows how I do this, if anyone wants to check it out. But it's a great way to do a dubbing loop. So I'm just going to start putting in my dubbing through between the thread. I like to go a little thicker on the dubbing just because we're going to use this to kind of build the bulk up on the fly. And if anyone wants to ask any questions or anything like that, I am watching the comments, so feel free to ask. But yeah, so we're just filling up this fly with the dubbing, making sure we have enough to get all the way to the bead. That should be good right there. I had a buddy actually tell me about this fly, so I tied it up, tried it on the river last week, and it actually did really, really well. I caught a lot of fish on it. I like it because you can use small twitches, so when you have like shallow water or you just don't have like a very large pool, you can just do tiny little twitches on this fly, and it actually gets a lot of movement for the space that it's going to use up. Okay, we're just going to wrap that from the back of the hook all the way to the front, and I like to just kind of fold back any fibers, making sure nothing gets trapped. I have a rotary function on this vise, but I like to just kind of do it by hand just to make sure I get all the fibers back. When I use the rotary function, it tends to trap a lot of fibers. But if it traps them, it's not the biggest deal because we are going to hit this with Velcro afterwards. Okay. And we're just going to do a couple wraps to kind of secure that. Pull it tight. My thread just broke off. I hate when that happens. Luckily it broke off in a spot that's not too hard to fix. Sorry guys, this is taking me a second. This GSP thread is hard to work with when it gets pulled through because you can't snip it very easily to get a nice clean end to pass it through the bobbin. There we go. Okay, so to fix that, I'll just lay it back on there, a couple wraps, and then we'll take that tag, twist it around a bit, add a couple more wraps on there. Grab the tag end that got cut off. We'll just make sure we at least got a couple wraps that secure that tag end. And then we can just snip that. Okay. Make sure that's on there good. And then we'll snip off that dubbing loop we made. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to take our Velcro to it. And we're just really going to fluff up that dubbin. Get underneath it. Just want to make sure nothing's trapped. I use fairly long dubbing on it too. I'm using this Arizona dub. I really like this stuff right here. I got it from Angler's Den in Roy, Utah. Okay, so now I'll flip this fly over, and we're actually going to pull the leather. We're going to flip that around, pull it so the fibers are facing back. Fold down that dubbing so nothing's getting trapped underneath. This fly is going to be more of like a jig fly, so that's why we're tying it upside down. And fold back the fibers. All right, there should be good. So now I do 2 loose wraps. Kind of hold it, and then I'll tighten it. Pull that leather, and then do a real nice tight wrap to secure that. And then we'll just snip it off as close to the base as we can. Just like that. And then I just use the thread to trap any leftover pelt that got stuck. And then to be honest, you could fish this fly and this would catch fish right here if you just want to make it really, really simple. But I like to do a collar right here using the rabbit or the scroll strip. So we're going to make another dubbing loop. We'll secure that. And then I'm going to use my whip finish tool again, keeping it parted like that. And then we're going to take about 1 inch or so of squirrel tail, and we're going to pass it through, push that leather between the loop. So it catches all those fibers. Okay, and then we're just going to snip off that leather, leaving the fibers pinched between the thread, making sure we don't accidentally cut the thread, but we want to get pretty close to it. Okay, then we're going to twist it. Just like that. And then we're going to wrap that for the collar. And then we'll do 2 loose wraps to kind of secure that. And pull down nice and hard on it. And then we'll do 1 more. And then we're just going to snip that. And then we'll whip finish. Oops, accidentally bumped it. I'll throw another one in there for good measure. And then we'll just add a little bit of glue up by the top of that bead. Just let it soak down into those fibers. And we'll cure it. You can see how much that bead glows once the UV light hits it. This is really catches trout's attention underwater. Okay. And there we have it. And that's a squirrel tail. Or I'm actually not 100% sure what this fly is called. It's similar to a squirrel bait, but more just tied on a jig fly. So yeah,